the Kresge Foundation offered the Siyaphumelela partners the opportunity to bid for a bonus grant, which would either scale up or develop further particular project aims. Now, at DUT, part of our project aim was really to consider our entire data infrastructure. We were in a situation of very disparate sources and streams of data that resided in very disparate spaces. There was limited access to student data in particular, and certainly not easy access to that data, usually having to be mediated through various offices to obtain the data. And then we also had a consideration about the capacity of our staff to work with data in a meaningful way towards student success. So essentially the purpose of our project was to build a data-informed culture at the university through developing institutional capacity to access, work with, and understand data towards student success, and that this would be supported by an appropriate and integrated data infrastructure, which includes a student tracking system. So we wanted to look at, we had 4 objectives essentially, and so when Rajan is talking about objective 1 and objective 3, that relates to those particular objectives. And so I think as Ku and Ashton come in and talk about their particular objectives, I'll introduce those a little bit further.
The first part was that I was involved was to review the data governance and security issues with existing data that's sitting on the MI repository. The second objective of mine was to publish the existing data that we have in the MI repository onto SharePoint. And the final objective on my side, on the objective 1, was develop a data catalog. And so we worked on that as well.
The second objective of our data project was to improve the capacity to use data. And there were 8 indicators which can be grouped roughly, because we had various activities, in terms of those 8 indicators, but they can be grouped according to 3 specific areas. And these areas were, first of all, to identify and train key staff in the use of data, as Nikki actually mentioned, that the concern was the capacity of staff to actually use data, so training was a big part of it. Then, obviously, building communities of practice. So once the training happens, then to encourage and inculcate, this ethos and this culture of actually working with data and using data to inform our practices and our decision making. So the second area then was building communities of practice and using the data. And then thirdly, which Rajan actually spoke to, was developing business intelligence tools. And of course, aligned with that would be training, because you would need to understand, what those tools are saying and how to use those tools. So we really like and thanks Ashton for the roadmap analogy, which I think it's really cool, it works. Overall, in terms of our objective 2, 4 activities have been achieved. 1 activity has moved to objective 4, and that's what you can see is that short left turn. I'm just looking at the screen in front of me. And that's the short left, because 1 objective did move to objective 4, from 1 activity from objective 2 to objective 4. And then in terms of what we've achieved actually 4 objectives. 3 are ongoing, and that's then the work in progress that's continuing. So in terms of what we've actually achieved, we have a big part of it was appointing people to work with data, and we call them the Data Jedi, which I think we've mentioned before at previous conferences. The 6 Data Jedi for the 6 academic faculties, and then of course the Siyaphumelela Data Training Officer, Ashton, which then increases the core to 7 people who are very skilled in data analytics. We've conducted several training workshops as part of that first group of training. And this has included things like basic and intermediate Excel. So we had to take it down to basic level. We said, what does staff need? What conducted a needs analysis? What do we have to do? And if it meant us starting at basic level, this is a spreadsheet, this is a cell, this is how you navigate. We did it that way. So we've conducted workshops, training workshops in Excel. It's also included how to access the SharePoint, the staff portal, and that's what Rajan spoke about in Objective 1, because there's historical data on the SharePoint. How to bulk upload marks to ITS, which is our integrated tertiary software system, where all the marks and data is captured. Also included Auto-Scholar workshops, which is the tracking system, which Ashton will talk more about, and that's the one that's actually moved to Objective 4. Ongoing activities, I would say that's the work in progress. It's the building communities of practice. I think we role model this community of practice very, very strongly through our Student Success Task Team workshops. These are very data-driven and very hands-on. You know, we limit presentations to a minimum. We just introduce the data, tell people what to expect, and then we give them the data, and they sit and they actually work with data and look at the implications of what that data is actually saying. Our Data Jedi team is also developing into a very productive community of practice. We have run training for the newly appointed academic staff who are completing the induction program with our Center for Excellence in Learning and Teaching. And so in this way, we're hoping further to inculcate this ethos of actually working with data and using data. And then in terms of the business intelligence, which is kind of the third group that falls under training, as Rajan did mention, Power Heater has come on board. We're so excited about this. We have had one introductory training workshop that was mainly for administrators. And then, of course, as this develops, we will then, Ashton mainly will conduct training for staff on how to use Power Heater and how to use Auto-Scholar. We will cascade down that training if needed. So it's a long and winding road, but we are slowly making progress, and I think in terms of improving the capacity to use data.
Correct. You're also responsible for Objective 3.
Yes. Okay. We look at Objective 3, and I think that it was more a technical kind of objective, and we looked at data infrastructure, the data integration, and the data warehousing. So initially we had the data working group, and which meets quite regularly, and we found that it was useful and it worked quite successful at DUT in the implementation of the data warehouse. So the responsibility of the data warehouse group was to identify the data warehousing and the BI stack. And majority of the institutional data resides on our ITS system, and we identified Power Heater from IDSC, which provides integrated data warehouse solutions, and also providing very friendly web reporting and decision supporting modeling. So after we've done quite a bit of exercise in the data working group and trying to identify the service provider, we've had quite a bit of workshops and meetings. We had a meeting with TUT and a lot of vendors, and finally we've identified IDSC to provide Power Heater as a solution for DUT. The implementation is completed. It's been done in 29 days. It started off in April and we finished off in June. We currently completed administrator training. We're going to have more training on the administrator and user training. And we've also have quite a few dashboards that are available on Power Heater, and we're expecting to generate more shortly. Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, Sean. So I'll be talking about Auto-Scholar, which is our software that we use to track students. It does have a machine learning component within it, so there is quite a lot in terms of what it's able to do when it comes to auto-generating advice to staff and students. So we're sitting with around 5 levels of users, the top one being your executive, your management, who would want to see a helicopter overview of what is going on within their program and potential areas for improvement and growth. We then have our lecturers and our course conveners, and they'll be able to understand the performance of their courses, potential areas for improvement among students, as well as their own staff development. We then have a section for the academic advisors, where it will give auto-generated advice about the students in terms of their progression in the context of other students within their program, and to allow them to change their performance over time. And we've got the students, where the students will be able to understand their own progression in the context of other students and their own performance and change over time, as well as track their exit level outcomes and their graduate attributes. And the last part, which is really important, is around the exit level outcomes accreditation. And this has been really one of the strengths of Auto-Scholar with the EXA, the Engineering Council of South Africa accreditation, where they have to use and map the achievements of these exit level outcomes down to the module level. So we were told earlier that we need to be our authentic selves, and for me, this is really the actual roadmap that's happened with Autoscholar. In terms of potholes, last year we had an Autoscholar 1.0, we now have an Autoscholar 2.0, and the main reason is that Power Heater actually came on board. So previously Autoscholar was accessing the ITS database directly, whereas now it's able to use the data that Power Heater is using. And in addition, we've actually achieved more activities since that last slide was generated. Now, I think it's important to note and be honest, that little picture in the lower left-hand corner, the plan is to have the straight and narrow road, whereas in reality, that is not what happens. So Autoscholar has come along in leaps and bounds. Where we're sitting at the moment in order to be able to achieve all of the activities is to just add the students. So our systems are in place, and really for me, in my module, the Me My World module, and if some of you attended the session earlier, where I showed you videos that the students had produced, the students for next semester will be actually working with their information, with the auto-generated advice that is coming through from Autoscholar, with working as me as their one-on-one academic advisor / lecturer / data analyst / quite a few things, to get them to understand what is the information saying about them, are they able to understand the results and the information which is auto-generated, and are they actually to make a change and to improve their academic performance and their overall student success at DUT. So hopefully I'll be able to present a lot more on how Autoscholar is improving the lives and the success of students by the end of next semester.